지금 다 단다디라 테스 칼레카보로지라 지똥이 거래 자로지샤 네 슈슈디가 슈 테스트마이나 지당이 타보르라 다든데 기다는 하와 데다 강기샘 지당은 주초단이라는 마신 하와래지라 강기샘사 샘이 되니 주베 타당 첼 주베 타는 지당이 오마빨리 따오로 시원지야 당도 동반이 거로 신는 남산도 최카버리라 괜히 신이 전전 참만 남스 일을 메지제슬라니 일을 다 간다 가리라 올라는 저기 직 띵서고 시원의 최당장 저거 라신래 직 말아서 샤디오라 누들 덴바젠데 파타시 지네 파타된 지네 아니 덴바트 거지다 대한 당바지 요마르스라 근데 로시워
디 양용은 직선문다. 덴버두발에.
덴버두발에 양아서 저건 항월라 쇼당지 덴버두발로 신가서 덴버젠데. 지유선 내가라디 데브로지나 덴버두발이 거기 유딩의 지유로 인zen데 거라. 지당이 문내기 봐 따된지네 봐 따지친 그래서이나 딜 문내기 덴버두발이 유라 요마레스라. 아니 파 상내야 보통 휴식처 파체로나 아니 파 칼로 직 따된지네 많이 봐. 동반이로 동이로 그래라. 이제 남성 안절로 라치 샤는 남성 양네 지도에 따라가 봐. 이내 하나서 다 디기 빼 가르다 온다 동부들라.
Now like the 22nd stanza or the 22nd practice of a Bodhisattva talks about emptiness. And now when we talk about emptiness, maybe it's a difficult concept to introduce, but just as a way of introducing what emptiness means, let's just for the moment try to understand it this way. Our perception, the way we perceive reality, the way we perceive things, let's just say the way we perceive a book, and then when we perceive this book, we say in the way we perceive it is this book as an absolute entity on its own, this book as absolute, something solid, or something something on its own, a solid entity, an absolute entity. But when we look at it with the lens of emptiness, then we know there is no absolute book in itself, since this book is comprised of pages, then the writings on the pages, it's a combination of part and particles, and there is no such thing as one absolute entity which is the book. So maybe in this rough way of explaining it, we approach emptiness in this way. And now there are more profound and subtle ways of explaining emptiness. And then we talk about emptiness actually talks about the way we perceive things, our perceptions. And now the way you've been saying middle way, and in this when we talk about the profound and subtle explanations of emptiness, then the middle way ideology comes in. So for now we would not go into these details. For now we will say the way we perceive reality as an absolute entity, that emptiness contradicts. Emptiness says reality or things, the way we perceive things as absolute, this is a wrong conception. Emptiness says it's empty of its true nature, empty of absoluteness, empty of being permanent. So this is the way to approach emptiness for now, for this.
다치랑 간주 단다 우마 마디미컬 우마 능 시미그라 디기 단다 미들 웨라 나라즈 가상도 간다 미들 미시라 당한테 디데 직 미르 문에게 엄마빠게 따와다 말해라 다 이내 고치렘 바치 따다로 실련 되어 가는 그런 시대에 와 세대 렘바지 칠레 마마데 누마 따다로 세대 렘바로 제레메지 디 우메 람라데 베도라 엄마빠게 따와디 데 말해 이내 코란단 도도 실레 거라 단다 엄마빠게 따와라 갈라나 만족이 시지라 바자가 되네 따든센 초탄이 메바지더라 다시 집에서는 바자가 되면 이해해 봐 들리긴 메바레스 원은 메바레 자원인데 요 말베라나 야 요레스 갈라나 만족 Di jideng chewa che nge tebre nge loi de zamba bodir la nga zo jiteng shiro ra ne tebi yore nga zo la pento ore di ya jideng ki thani la nga zo yoda hore chichira ta ona di pa une thane demba to yore rangun khorangi tsugmul tsuba yore la na ya yoma nga zo ba ta den jaga don di tebi pa re ne ba chan ra di shu di re de ne re di page re ne re ona tsik re ne re wala ta 자지 당하는 아주 얘기입니다. 라 다른 뜻은 많이 봐. 이내야 오늘 배도 걸어자니 요 말을는 요래. 지댕이 다니라고 대답당 찍지 미래라 심지에 하려는 요라. 라 빠쩍들면 니니 버를 오면은 되지 샤바면 지당도 가져라 돼야 돼. 이제 쇼트 바지래도 미들로 올라는 엄마빠기 따왔다 가면 참으라. 가장 아주 라디에도 마치 세다바로 야 마마도 뉴마도 되지 샤워를 차리라.
Now like we've heard like this term umelam or like middle way a lot in the last few classes, but when we talk about emptiness, then like the middle way of approaching emptiness, then like the middle way that we discuss in the sense like we discussed in the previous classes, then like it's two different things. The middle way that we discuss is more about an approach of like limiting or like an approach of restraint. But now like when we talk about emptiness, the middle way view of emptiness is such like now we say emptiness, all compounded things are empty. Now what do we mean by this? We say like all compounded things are empty of their absolute nature, empty of like their own self-arising nature. Now what do we mean by like this absolute and self-arising nature? We say like there is no such entity in the world that does not depend on causes and conditions to arise, for it to arise. So when we kind of think about book, the immediate thing like the immediate like perception is not to think about like all the factors that goes into like producing this book. The first like immediate reaction that we have is like a book as a solid thing, like something that just came out of nowhere, right? This is the immediate perception of the book. So then we say like it doesn't exist free from causes and conditions. It's not. It's impermanent because it's momentarily changing. So there is no empty of absolute nature. So it's now like for this purpose, let's just focus on the absolute nature of like grasping at things. So we just say it's empty because it's empty of its absoluteness. Now let's stop it here. And then the other extreme is to say like now like does this book like not exist at all? The question arises, right? And then like we say no, it's not to say that this book does not exist. It does not exist in the way we perceive it to exist. Now this is the distinction. And now like then like if this book exists, then how does it exist? We say it exists only nominally, by name, by our own like conventional way of perceiving things. Not in the ultimate sense of the word it exists, but it exists only nominally. Because we called it a book, it exists as a book. Right? So these are the two extremes. And the middle way tries to like work an understanding of emptiness, not jumping on these two extremes.
dillamsa khwa le thabi ta ra do khama thwa ma mbale do khoi ra ine ta di o itsinga shimba zu ma de hi jo ani peje ya ga de khwa ra ya do pen tho sa ra den chang an mi thuni ma do yes.
So now maybe like emptiness introduced in such a manner, maybe it's hard to wrap your head around this concept at first, and don't worry about it. Don't worry about like wrapping your head around the concept of emptiness, and let's just try to focus on what the text says in the next 3 lines, and maybe it would help to like get an understanding of what like this emptiness business is actually about.
Teacher, and that the work it's young the last thing as you study doesn't do that. So the you don't we, you don't chebana, and so you don't want to chash say you don't know, you don't want. Chidang ngazu shincha chesa ro jila machidang ya ku chamjida ke marra ani thebana ngazu lo thu de de thu ina ra yu yi dong di karla na su su sanong tang tang de chashi che ma ju ne ani a de da yakha gi ngazu jano jires tanda yena tanda me ba cha chi mata ba ro ya mi ji ngazu chi mi chi na do ge na ko be ko ro tachi ko ta pa tem de mara ra gengo cha ya ne na ba cha khari ne cha ko ta gara de mara chala do jila ngazu shincha chi na chala de kadu ne sa sa de mara imba cha re khari ne ro 진상 된데기 파기 신체에서 유드 된데기 튀운도 가라 아니 내가 간주 간대로 따올라나 인자나시 인자도 주도가 주도 되게 좀 말다 주도 샤가로지요 갖다가 뺑기고 샤워라 이내 그 유를 몸에 봐라 되게 못다 봐야 된 주고도 알아 자잖아 내 몸에 봐 아니 제발 나야 제가 안켜나는 인자도 주시나 뺑기고다 수신담을 야 보통 거라 제발 나야 덴바 메바 따라 demba yo maras rashi ki phagi mon tuba ra dega na sing ta tapat tembo jida pe khalo yerum ne thwe de ge rashi ji yo maras ra tende inza de la shencha po kyang yu de la tende ji la ngam ni pe shen shin cha pa ra tende ge pe semba cha go de yo maras tende inza tende de pong ge ane pong chewa da tende chewa ina yes shanchi semba du zo ge nyamne re la ra.
Now we move on to the 23rd stanza, and like in the 23rd stanza, it is mentioned that the practice of the Bodhisattva is to let go of grasping. And now, when we say let go of grasping, and then like as mentioned before, when we introduced the concept of emptiness, and then like grasping is like grasping at this like. This perceived absoluteness of the object of your desire or attachment. And now in this stanza it says like the object of our desire and attachment are devoid of any substance. They do not really exist as the way we like as this absolute thing that we perceive it. And it is compared here like with this beautiful example of like rainbows in the summer skies. So like these like rainbows, even though like when you look at it they're like beautiful, but when you like go and try to find the true substance of a rainbow, then it's like immaterial, you know. There's nothing of substance there. So the practice of Bodhisattva is to realize this like, you know, devoidness of substance in the object of our desire and attachment, and to let go of this grasping nature in ourselves.
Teacher, diodil khalena sgan chapshi to dungen hatsu ramana zalasi dungen hatsu banzam zan yura dungen shi yura
this tagin chikle to jure. One thing like I forgot to translate. Now like how is this like object of desire like without substance, and then how do we meditate? How do we try to think about like the lack of absoluteness in this object of our desire? And then we think about like an example, a shiny new thing being the object of our desire. And then like when we think about it, of course that object as an absolute, we try to think about the emptiness of this object, like not existing. Like, you know, as an absolute thing. But then we try to focus about the qualities too. This freshness of the shiny new object of our desire. This quality is not permanent. And this newness of the object of our desire, this quality too is not absolute too. So like this is all the object of our desire are without substance, without absoluteness in their nature.
That's the way to meditate, the state of when visualizing something related to emptiness?
Maybe we do not talk about emptiness so much at this point. Tamogi tongbanyi la jura. Dilatati sambo Thosamling dendri roji tangoro ya la.
Dide mal tanga nganzu ji shincha chesa panggo de go ra. Pena chisa dide de oyo tamani da kharasana shincha chesa yuri phagi la one to negi demba to chi yo maras. Dide ngeta ilasa. Singa de oyo re o de ma shi ona gama di khoera kan to re esra. Chisa ngi oma pa tawal lamsa de ko chu ju de chi tombani to su ju de yo mar ra. 근데 저는 상담은 아니 데스가 가버리네 시간 셴바도 주야 아니 텔레펜토 그랬으라고 해라 단데디 가르러서나 빼나 주콘도 빼지 샤마잖아 데스가 가버더라 니 빼지 샤오라 빼지 샤와이나 다치랑 깔라도 지금도 가르러 샤오나 맞아 카바로 샤미 참말 카바이에 버라 딱 카바로 다서 아이폰 지수 좀 가르 뭐 좀 말해 뭐 딘데로 지 샤와이나 다드듬 지게 카바로즈를 배셔가다 모터로 가르샤나 라 지카르샤나 잘라 디상 잘라 그렇게 차오 가르쳐
카바 아이폰도
아이폰도 샤가다 다 저는 가서 아이폰에 야 버르는 시고시 쓰고 와 쓰게 왜냐야 파타시 지니 파랑시 유튜브에 문내기 파기를 열어라나 라 계시 요바이나 잠링이 미창마기 들에 야 보통 거여줘라 야 가지 아이폰 세세세 말라니 되네 무시라 가시 이게 디피지 마다네 오포도 본심만 담도 근데 피지 당어라 제자 코라이 몰에 라시 이페 몰에 이게 몰에 투버지 라지 몰에 코라 담바 투버나 야포지 요바이나 미수 따네야 라 야보통 거여줘라 야 되네 뭐 가시 거 야보통 가시 니데 싫어야 뭐 심바야 들래도 근데 리기도 라 근데 인지가라 제자 디기 간주게 파 담반 짐반 나시기 유응을 매봤던 거라 다 잘라 가리네 되가래 그냥 아주 처음에는 잘라다 머도 라 때문에 예 야보통에도 취야보통 뭐 취야보통도 코야보통 말에 라 매참에 잘라 찔라가나 먼저 잘라라에 가버라 땅도 처음에도 뒤통도 잘라 뒤도 수요 그래서는 야 년년도 거년도 라 배시다니도 제상아도 로이 메발디 수수가 판진 어디 야보둘는데 파 수셔주로 지르면 파기 유응은 아 야보유는 사람시 투셔주입니다 라 이내 간도 처음에도 가 디가오둘래 수수가 디야보통도 딩겨래 코나 디야보통도 딩겨래 유응은 아니 가디 야가요는 먼저 라토고만 라 근데 시래 대 제상 수수가 로이 파 수셔주로라 제상 데마도 그걸 쓰려 말래
Okay, so now thank you for your question, and now maybe rather than trying to gain a philosophical understanding of emptiness, maybe let's take an example of the modern world, and something like the example of an iPhone, and how we try to use the concept of emptiness in our practice. So when we say the iPhone, now there is this general idea everybody wants to buy an iPhone, right? Everybody covets this thing. But then if the absolute nature, if the quality of an iPhone is so good, it's so absolute in nature, it's so absolute that everybody, if it's so the quality of the iPhone is so absolute, then it should follow that everyone in this world should be able to like the iPhone and want the iPhone, right? But this we know this is not the case. Not everybody wants to buy an iPhone. Not everybody likes the iPhone, right? So maybe we try to think about it this way. So the object of our desire in this case, let's say, is the iPhone. And if the object of our desire is actually the way we perceive it, absolute in its nature, absolute in its qualities. And now we know if we try to break it down, we know the iPhone it's a combination of parts and many parts. It's a combination. This is the meditation on nature. Now the quality of the iPhone, it should be absolute too if it's absolute, right? But the object of desire, the quality of the object of our desire is not absolute. Why? Because not everybody wants to buy the iPhone, right? Some people, they want to buy an Android phone, right? So if the absolute, do you get the example? Yeah, the absolute nature of the quality, the absolute nature of the absoluteness of the nature, the absoluteness of the quality. So now nature we can meditate part and practical, we can break it down. Now the quality, this is the way we try to cultivate this in our practice, the concept of emptiness. So we now realize, since not everybody sees the absolute quality of the iPhone, we know there is no absolute quality of the iPhone. It's empty of this absolute quality. And then we realize whoa, this is maybe a projection of our own mind, on the object of our desire. So this is the way we approach it.
Penang Tom de Chiga, Telamuja, Tipesan, Tom de Tuluda, Mutsama Tuluchi Garinda. I said that the suit when you go to Thosamling, Kajidino, the current Damachora. This is not a Palo Patasha, not a dear, but a deal.
So, like, just to tie into this example, it's the same, like another example, when you go to the market, there are a lot of different clothes on display, and then, like, not everybody buys the same kind of clothes. If, like, these clothes, now we say, like, these things, if they are, like, absolute in, like, their nature and quality, then they should have the same appeal for everyone. Everybody should want this same thing, right? But this is not the case. People have, like, different preferences, because the object of a desire has no absolute nature on its own, or no absolute quality on its own. This is just a projection of our own mind upon the object of our desire. Okay, questions? Maybe we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I think that I feel that we're talking about material stuff, like the phone and stuff like that. It's easier, but if we talk about like money, I mean, we all need money, we don't use it, we are attached to it, we live in the world. So then what am I supposed to do with that?
Love people.
Love,
feeling. That is something that you can touch. Like relation. Does it mean that it doesn't exist? Is it empty of value? Like if you love someone, you know that it's empty of reality.
Wait, let me try to, the money?
Yeah, when we talk about money, then I have to use it. I have to earn it and use it in order to live. Relationship is also something, it's something that I choose. Money, I can't not choose it. It's my life. So, yeah.
And what is the question like?
I'm thinking in relation to emptiness and attachment. I feel like there's no way to avoid it.
No way to avoid this attachment to money.
Yes, and to see like that.
Especially with some
I see that it's empty, but it's also not empty because I have to. We all agree on the concept of money.
Okay, yeah. But exactly now. So this is why, like, when we talk about emptiness, it's very important not to jump on the philosophical aspect of it first. But if I may, then like you said, money is a concept, right? Yeah. So therein lies your answer. It's actually like a projection of the mind, because money is just a man-made thing, right? Money on its own, like, if we like put it into analysis, it's empty. We know that. But your question, I understand. I think the question is like, money, like even if we like know that it's empty, but since emptiness should serve as an antidote to attachment, but like in our like day-to-day experiences, it's almost impossible not to have this attachment to money. Yes. Oh, this is the question. Yes. Okay. That emptiness tombani re laniga khakuwaras mani mi shugul heble jire mi taksha gyore thöngeso khola chik nubada khola di thönam gi je yomaras ani kizi tombani la jira di docha gi ji nimbola rugiros kizi tombani docha gi nimbola drona in ngone chena nganzu namgyu mesi ke du zambayora tombani ta pesha ji tombani gi da this 동바이 니 레는 하 고신도 아니 되차지 문으로 두기면 도왔어 이만이만 기도 좀 배셔 고도 삼기도 왔어 단동 니 간데레스
이제 고도 세상 가서 얘다 일레서 엄마를 했는 도 뱃거라 혀 동바이 레는 그런 거 이제 참아래잖아 저거 말아 근데 가서 지den디나로 초고디가는 지den이 도단들에 되네 우리 파티는 가서 가라사야로 순요 디베시단 도어라 그라 나 뱃거라지 주바이 동바이 고미는 그런 거 참아 파티 어느 말에 mersa and the digomra. Kunjing Donadi Temba. Shusho Sana Tana Tilla Shibu Shibu Be Chashi Chimu Majewachi, Surin Bachin Ra. 배치 슈브지 렘바 메바이나 나라 자고 동고 뜻은 동암지도 되게 배도 거라베 이 수수기 파게들 담바든다 디 무도 연다 당하 가래 있는 리시사이 된데기로 제 말했어 이네 내가 나도 펜고 거라 제가 얘기 따기 라기다 말한적이 타치데 들을 앞에 디 타치데 요 말을나 야 나도 지대라 배주셔야 다니를 열어 봐 지단이야 디 칼로 베드 슈 데모지 마 신차치서 이때야 말아 코트레 보여주도 지랑이 단다 무슨 네가 다시 뭐 보자 지금 무슨 배실라야 돼 나중에 지랑이 때 파파샤 주래 라 벤 디슈고 디슈고 흘러들래 지무레를 짜와치 못 쓰잖아 디 양패 짜치 못 차고 라 티페트 노디시라 디지랑이 빼 아버지
Losses. Okay, now wait a second. Now when we talk about like the money and this practical attachment that we have to money, even when we when we have an understanding of the empty nature of money. Now, like as I mentioned before, the way to approach emptiness, the middle way approach. We say like, of course, we say like it's empty. The money or like anything is empty of its absoluteness. This is the one extreme or one fact of emptiness. But then the other extreme is to say like we say this is empty of its absoluteness, but we don't say that there is no money at all, because that would be the other extreme, right? There is no money at all, like it doesn't exist at all. Now we do not try to like fall between these two extremes, because nominally it's something man-made, but nominally it exists, and it exists for a purpose in the worldly way of things, right? But in our spiritual practice and the ultimate ultimate nature of reality, we know like this is empty as we see. So it's quite relative in this way. So the kind of approach that we need to take is not to fall into these two extremes. It doesn't exist, or like just to always meditate on the lack of on the complete emptiness of this thing. Maybe like we need to approach it with like, now for a lack of a better term, like with a middle way approach. So for example, the gelonji imbechanera the peshala the taking kandesure.
Peshala the jiding tanina pejata tang jugora. Hinga bit korachi nyamnichi and a patient wall and today, bit for them to Madubadel and today, Zotua Kabura, and the patient and the conjitan or Sokora. Did you like what the inea till a chasing shoe, did you know the dishes some angelo's door? Did you know such a did Chicago the Degelo Shuchambud and then Che Madestra?
So maybe like maybe the way to approach like this would be this, like when you say like I'm a spiritual person, I engage in the spiritual path, and I'm only concerned about like the ultimate nature of things, and then I do not need money. This is not practical, all right? But the way to approach it is like, I am a spiritual person and I am engaged in the process of like I am engaged in the spiritual path, and the way I will approach money is not to like be like overly consumed by this need to like earn money all the time, and this is the way to approach it. And she says she will give you another example. Okay, now like I just want you to answer this question. If you have a $500 rupees note in your hand and $1,000 rupees note in either of these two in your hand, would any of you tear it about and throw it in the dustbin?
No.
Nobody will do this.
The question is, if we have 500 rupees, would we throw it out?
Will you tear it and throw it in the dustbin?
But nobody in the world will do that.
even nuns and monks.
I can do it with 10 rupees.
고무치 있는데 같이 됐었어.
이내야 딜티 딩간즈 로 파타지 버딩이 세우테오라 오늘 그래 딩간즈 mambure요다 와 딩간즈 뭐 자갈 페시 강이 있어서 이디가 제가 지당은 스칸 이거 말 전한테 단도 그 고무치 있는 소투서레스라 나라라게 이 근데 고무 영아제들 대벌 하도 얘마 제야 템버진다 디라 비주요 말 그다 또베다 좀 파타주르면도 그거는 민도 내가 들으니 기니디 외들이 중으로라 다디 가라라나 그런데 얘마 자갈 페시 책강이 되어 하고 있나 아니 고무치도 첨바다 안가제 첨버와 근데 콘서 비주면 버스 서두가는 미카지 다 참아 제오저 라 고무신바다 바제오저 아니 간서 가시 대벌을 잠잠 무디라 대벌을 우셔 라 제일 때때 자가기 비주면 버스 사디가 간서 통고 통대가 다 거시고라는 비주제면 괜히리요 이제 가시 바구드네라 자 쯤무서서 셔라 제가 디디가 코라시기 주비 간저 제가 고몽아제네 가지 니신 하리는 간저 바 무레다디 페 펜토를 바 따셔 주지로 아니 가이라이 당한도 따가 따르는 미참이기 다운이가 다 디데 파티는 지사야 동에 녀로 참 디피지나로 라 다치는 니마지 등을에 치카 마르다 다가 쇼고지레라나 그래네 요거라 제가 근데 간저디 고몽녀만 아제 참 자와 참 못지서 간나 루페 대바라샤야 보냐데 주마 다디데 디페지요 마르다 다가지 야 심바 주살라나 데디 메바샤로다 계시 공을 요와인데 가지 참 다도야 메트니 야데 거라 디등아도 바레 유 그런치니 치투다 제가 그런 거라 덴버트 버치 메다 먼저도 파타샤 참마
But I would like to recount an experience where I actually tore up a 500 and a 1,000 rupee note. Now this is a funny story, and I want you to listen to it. I'm not sure, like, if all of you are aware of this like demonetization campaign in India. Or are you? Yes, you. Okay, so wherein like the Indian government blacklisted like these old currencies. And like they were no longer in use, and they gave the public a certain amount of time to go to the bank and change this into new notes that the government issued. So there was a period of time wherein like these pieces of paper no longer become legal tender, you know. So the old 500 currencies and 1,000 currencies, they were no longer legal. So I want to recount this experience. And during demonetization, like a lot of people went to the bank, changed the old currencies into new currencies. But then after like demonetization like ended, and then like as like I was like reading a text, I saw that there were like there was a 500 rupee note of the old currency in my scripture, and then at that moment I had to tear it. Now it's useless, right? It's illegal as well, and it's useless. So this clearly like shows that this money, it has no absolute nature. It is a mental construct, and we project the value of the money on money, and then like conventionally, of course, it makes sense for money to exist as a way of trade, as a way of like exchanging value, goods, but like ultimately, you know, like the money, like it's just like in the end, we project the value, and we mentally construct this concept of money.
But it exists because we all agreed that it's
Exactly. So this is what
as a society that is needed. So
this is what I'm saying. So what do you mean by a convention? Is a decision of is a sense of agreement among the people to say like, okay, we agree in this.
Yeah.
So conventionally it makes sense, but ultimately it doesn't make sense. So this is the two truths explained in Buddhism, like the ultimate truth and relative truth or conventional truth. It doesn't make sense to just fall to the extreme of one truth, you know. As you make your way in samsara, you need to like find a balance between these two truths.
제가 드디어 냥마 가실라네 미추부드네라 다 군주기 빼가려져라 총자의 날에 고난적이 다 가르치는 무맘부만 몸부만 쌓여 샤라 다 드디 강에 태우다가 다 미망부 미치게 에네 당가 망부 제입니다. 세로지 여러 강이라 제마도 딱 콘즈 칼라네 고마타 산데네 바테샤다. 냐라 수수 칼레제 자와 쳔보냐 고마 그거를 삼아 배 자와 쳔보냐라 다디 유마 다디 쇼고 차르죠. 다 비즈메 차르지리건 가시 파트에서 미쪽오데네 라티니라네 미쪽오도 그 망부요 먹고도 제일 강이요 말 가시 쪽오데네 라마테라 가시 고마타 산데네 타와 망부인데가 코나 제로 파 가시 테샤르다. 안나라데 되네 강이
베테르라레 제로치달는 테르
베테니어스 가시 베데 파테샤스 가시 그냥 미쪽오데네 장서 제로 파테 가시야 니데 제로치는 제라테죠. 안네진 간다 간다 킵베지 다 쇼 차르죠. 쇼제 베지메 다 나도 가서 누르네 통침부 샤데 오라. 다 통어디 또베 바 따샤 주레면 니메지 거 메메 차르 오라. 라 데마트 병고네 야네 그 미츠 가른 joa 난 다간 템부데 오라. 제가 가서 미참에 가고 치워이네 미참에 모르디 자와 첨부를 다는 따샤. 라 세르 누미나 간지
So another example I want to give you during this demonetization period in India is like some very rich people. They had a lot of money, like stacked home, right? A lot of currency home, and like the government imposed like a limit on the amount of money that one person could actually change or one family could actually change in the bank. So at that moment, out of like out of fear, you know what these people did. This like money up until this point, they hoarded, they treasured so much. They wanted this money for themselves only. At that moment, what they had to do, some of this family, they had to let go of this money because otherwise it was just in the danger of becoming a useless piece of paper, right? So you know, only at that point they started to give it to like poor family. Since poor people like they do not have any like such huge amount of money to change in the bank, they gave it to the poor people, and they started to give it in the monasteries because in the monasteries there are a lot of monks and nuns, and then like these like individual monks, they can change it in the bank. And some people also like gave like a fee to other people, like please go to the bank and change this money for me. So this is the way this is the way it is clear, like objects of our desire or attachment, in this case money, it's always like our own mental construct and our own like mental projection, the value that we see in this object of our desire. And now like if this object of desire is like faultless in the sense that it's absolute, if the value of the object of our desire is absolute, then this piece of paper should never lose its value ever, right? So this is the way like we can try to think about like
What about relationships then?
Yes. What about love?
What about love? I mean, this is nature, and we as human, we have relationships because we are social animals.
Maybe if I may suggest, in the text we go down, it talks about desire and how to like differentiate between what is actual love, what is desire. Maybe we give the text a chance today. Yeah.
그런데 먼저그 동반이래 덴버트고 요마를 딩구 참아멜레티 근데 제 말이야. 스스로 배제다는데도 걸어. 근데 제 배도 나라 무 쇼고 근데 배도 그처럼 무 카마가 있는 게제 말이야. 디 강처럼 카마가 있는 같이 시시도 저는 배제당도 뭐네. 근데 밀때 간데 무슨 제가 처럼 보지. 가시기 자신에게 왕이 배 망보지 딩구 된다를 두바지 고마지 잡아지 디 콘도 망보지 사이다. 근데 또 치고 말이야. 스스로에 세타다도 고라. 봐. 네디 데마 마두버레샬라네. 그런 참아 메버선 산 실로도디 가라. 미참아 치바 말 미참아 냠네 제투니. 망도 칼라사 먹어야 또 먹어야 되기 냠네 제투 말아. 야 고르다스라.
So now as I teach you this text and we talk about emptiness and then we say like the things are empty of their absolute nature or absolute quality, and then you brought up the topic of money, and as we had this class, spiritual class in a sense, and then I introduced this concept of emptiness to you, and then this doesn't mean I'm asking you to like do away with money just because you feel like, just because I taught you that things are empty of nature. Even as a spiritual practitioner, it makes sense to live in this world to have money, because you need to take care of your basic needs, right? But the point I'm trying to make is like money, conventionally we have all agreed to put some value on it because we see it makes life easier for us. And now like to have some sort of limit on our desire for money, to put some sort of like restraint on the need of us to collect huge amounts of money. So like then like one that, and two like to accumulate money, then it should stop you from like engaging in like negative ways of like accumulating money. So this is the way to approach it.
Tanda chik karlana kashi yami be sana sauda ngule tsawa chambo tsu ngone ore myangan ro mar nan da kundu shusol ta ne yuna mishida ra ngone kashi be ngule ngu mambo yorda ngu peje tangara ra kulo du jogu ko saya du ina jogu sa mila temada susu nane myangan ro mada ngule tinde tsawa chambo tsu de yora tinde tsu dingu de karata shogo de chipacha meba de chipacha ra tinde ro res ine dia peje tana do susu ya bishul chi peje tana ta yora kashi ki khala ngule tsawa chambo dematu shubishin ze 티베도 그러면 간루 고자제 배 슈팅 사우지 샤가라 수수 나디 페제마다 칼라사야다 다카레네 근데 페제마다 진 파츠도 페제마다 슈라.
So now like I would like to give you another example, and maybe you would like make this point further clear, and and some people like they have money, but like the attachment to that like sense of value of the money is so strong, like the attachment to the money that they have accumulated is so strong that they're not able to spend the money that they have accrued, right? Because even though money is supposed to help you to live a better life, but like when you get sick, these type of people, due to their overt like sense of attachment to the money, they are not able to spend it even when they like need to go to the hospital, right? They're not able to spend that money because they are like overly attached to this to money. So maybe like this kind of extreme examples should let you know like how to approach money.
가시기 이거는 무유는 밤에 노제 담바 담을 써보라. 마수절지 칼로. 다 무유다네야 직sel게 버피지 땅네야 직 거리는 우더라. 배도 컨트롤 샤네야. 수수기 슈 운도체 지기마 담을 쳤네야 강이 튀더라. 다지 간다 추려를 마치야디 베키지 말라.
Now the other extreme would be like some people who have money, like they spend it without restraint, like they just spend widely, and this is a source of like suffering too. Not just for yourself, but this sows the seed of like jealousy and envy in other people. They're in like disturbing their inner peace too. So these are the extreme examples and kind of real life examples, real life relations that people have with money, and the way attachment, controls the relationship of money with people. So maybe you can like try to think about these like real life kind of examples rather than just focusing on like the empty or the philosophical aspect of it.
다단다 디 지간이 진짜시 나올라 지지지더라. 지지디 가라 단단 아주 강나야 자신제에 말했어. 유들 배 쇼쇼 차제 차제 대번대번 되고 말해라. 단다 딜라야 칼라나 아주 두부로 둥해로 중앙이나 다 빼다가 빼 둥해래셔라냐 빼 semba 신고에 말했어. 디치 지간이를 되어더라. 파츠 이제 되어줘라. 제가 아주 빼 쉬우에 자신체야 말로 쉬고 좀 딱딱 들어둬야지. 그래. 딜라 가르치는 것들라나 만나라 동현 하죠. 당한절은 지대 나올라 나와 차와이나래 semba 강이나래 벤조 강이나래 고유 강이나래 강이 마무지로와. 그래. 동현 하죠 봐요래데 디 가르치는 소소기 한 산노 아버지 땅와이는 그 동해디에 빠라시기 덴버투고 문에게 요마레스 와. 배나 배천도 가르잖아. 면함 부시 따라라데 아주 면함 날로다 아마지기 소소 부지를 빼 자와 첨보 요바이나. 와. 다 부자와 첨보도 니마징 아마도 니 코니 내가 면함 날로라 부도 시와 면함다. 와. 다 아마도 빼 동해만 부지리라. 당에 부지 마셔 말디 시순다네 빼 콜라 semba nalola ta dungi padme baji nyongora wa tena shi ngara zge jite nalola dungi tede yore de te simla pushina shi susu de roji resam to de ba wa chezan di ta tanda nyilam nalola ane pushwa dungi de amagi nyongwa de khasna ama nyilam nalola thude wa thuna dembaran zem zuwe 아타치스 제가 가지고 동해 마부지 념되고 this 상황 가지고 뭐는 지단이 투나로 지더라 동해는 지단이 나자 동해 원에 지단데 요르 다바투 바바 슈치 버자가나 나 산노 당소실레네 동해시를 차고 말아 근데 네가 산노 슈치 뭐 있다는 배다 거 타치에도 한 드네로 차도레스 이 참을 나가 샤샤라 됐을까 거대
now like the next stanza I think it ties in as a contrast to the previous stanza. And in the previous stanza, we said like we should not grasp or like we should not become overly attached to these worldly pleasures and these like objects of desires. And now, like as a contrast, it's in the 24th practice of Bodhisattva. It teaches us to recognize our delusion when confronted by adversity or misfortune. Now, like suffering in general, we should not become deluded, we should not become discouraged by the delusive nature of the nature of our suffering. Adversity or misfortune, let's just call it suffering here. And suffering, it arises to many different conditions. That's just as you know, like economic suffering. Due to economic conditions, you suffer. Due to physical conditions, you suffer. Now, like different kind of sufferings. But then the example given here is that of a mother who dreams that her child is sick. That her child dies in her dream, and now like even though it was a dream, the anxiety, the fear, the suffering that the mother goes through feels very real to her, right? When she is dreaming that her child is dying in the dream. So the text, it says like since like the nature of our suffering is actually not as we perceive it, then like we need to try to like meditate on the delusory nature of like our own suffering, on our suffering, and then to recognize this delusion is the practice of a bodhisattva. Tadi tangbodi khangsure the sigang tamadela khangchidu.
대신 밀람 깬다 다가라 대시르스라 메탄치다 쳐봐 딱 하절지 메탄와 만디베 깬데 티라 나 저와 옛날에 동네 mam부징오라 근데 깬데 티비잖아 아니 근데 깬데 당한테 투비세 내가 강이 티로와 디디가 안타 투바타발란타 용시그레스 수 오늘 전에 덴버트베게 동네디 요머스라 다디페 참마데 토니로 바자이다 테스칼레 카보데라 네야 덴버트 라싱 덴버 딱pat 덴버 동네디 거디네 바 덴데 동네신데 많이 마치 저도라 근데 인사 아니 투바타와 제셀라네 덴데 동네디야 바 덴버트베게 요머스 딱한다 갈로나 대화 이날에 동네 이날에 바 덴버트 라싱 건 수투바지 요머레
So now like as mentioned in the previous stanza, the 23rd practice of a bodhisattva, now it's these like stanzas, they are imbued with this like this concept of emptiness, and now let's not try to approach it in a philosophical way. Like let's try to look at the example that is given here. Since like the things that we misperceive to be a source of happiness are not absolute, then the kind of like suffering that we go through in our life is not absolute too. Because when we are suffering, we feel like we are like this is forever. Sometimes we have this feeling, right? I'm going to suffer forever, and why is this happening to me? This kind of feeling. So to kind of combat like this kind of delusion, then you need to kind of meditate on the fact that this suffering arises due to like causes and conditions. And as soon as like these causes and conditions disappear, then the suffering disappears too. So this is like trying to meditate on the empty nature of our suffering too.
I think there is absolute suffering and there is absolute love. And I think there are many various examples for that, also scientifically proved. Like as there is sound, disturbing sound, that has an effect. If you put sand on a plate, on a metal plate, and you give a sound, and it's a pure, clean sound, the construction will become like a mandala, like a snowflake under the microscope.
But it depends on this sound to be produced, right? But it depends on that sound to be produced.
Yeah, if we talk like from love and suffering, and that it's not absolute, and that it's in meditation.
Maybe we reserve this question in the question and answer session in the evening. Yeah? Because right now, like we try to connect it with the text.
Going to the text, to this exactly.
The moi lana yora. Dundam dungye ji dus. Ani dundam gi tsewa chambala ji dus. And what was the example of the?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So the question is,
there have been children. I don't remember the exact name of this scientist.
No, the question is like you.
Finish, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Then I have a chance also to reach. So this scientist, he took some children in a baby state of growing or small, and he did experiments with them, like social experiments. And he prevented food like that, but no love, no affection, no physical warmth, nothing at all. And these children that were just provided by food, they did not develop, they became sick. So, and the same was done with children that had this love and affection and this care and this, cheering up. And they grew. And there are so many examples like that also with plants, the same where you,
And the question being, and the question?
The absolute nature of suffering and love.
Okay.
That it's a delusion or a perception, like to get, I don't know how to express it.
Now, like here, we just discussed about like the suffering being empty in nature under the ultimate analysis.
Yeah,
but you feel.
Is it really empty?
Okay. Should I translate?
Then we go to a course on emptiness. Then we should go to a course about emptiness.
Maybe we translate first to Geshema. Ta moi lana thiwa dirt. Tanda ganzo thendamgi dungye la jo maris. Thendamgi dungye la ne yo mare la gora.
Demba
dubagi dungye jo maris. Demba dubagi ta thagin khar sungre kan dila.
Dungye de
dewanija yo mare sungora. Ani moi lana dus ya. Kachizana ta mogi nimada tsiriba zogi tsiriba tsama sangyo dindrigi da dichijo insara takje chigiro bugu lo chunju dindela ya tsar de zamba ani konzo ta khoryuro jitru ani dila bugu duzula ani khalaji putte chamda ningji la ro ta ko chambo ro che ne che ma che ani dene bugu chigla bugu shinda group chigla ra shinda ruga chigla ani konzola chamda ningji da changma yugo chinitena ani pu니 di charlong chungdu zamba yora keba shukshimbo tungi doas 어디 리시도 티와
그래 디코이 레라레라 그냥 알아서 인지미 세리바고 말 파마카시 부글을 저메베 나인다 부글도 베 강이 쳐 침부차나 셈발라 나차 유지로 둥이 유지로 상무방마 히지로 슈소나나 템보메버데 체도 파마카시 부글들 제보체 야보체 아니라브냐 야보체든지 주먹고 펜톤이 야보체이다 진짜 내가 나도 제가 나라서 시조를 제단이 땡데래 내가도 비베기 나셔널요 땡데래 찍찍을 땡데요스라 찍찍을 땡고 찍찍을 로바치고 참 게라 타키디 요 말은 내가 비주다야 거래요 말을 나와 말아 이 베드 요 말을나 요래 되게 타니를 요래를 제가 단다디 지댕이 타니를 요버지라 다 덴바트 바파 축강이 레는 바세가 되는 게 마요 제단게 텐조게 따와도 쳐서 갈래가고 요래라서 근데 레라버지 하고 해야지 말해 나도 나셔 장어도 갈래 로마보 지게텔 신이들 라고라 chance 단데디 셜레 카시질로 남사 시투에지다 말해 이네 지상 다기링이 chance 버투르 삼스라 저마 볼리게 삼생도 딜리 올마 안데와 요르라이 아니 가스나 디 다리 람상 다 쳐지 말해. 와 이네 이 가를 당인 나사. 파타 다시 찌는 파길 되면 요 말해. 이네 요 말에는 요레스. 나도 타니래 비지 제가 미들 웨일 딜라고 해야라사.
Now, like I would like to you talked about a social experiment the scientists like perform on the children to come to the conclusion to come to their conclusion, but but what?
What conclusion?
To the conclusion that if you just give them food and no love and affection, they are not able to develop as normally as children you give love and affection to. That was your question, and then like
related to the emptiness of the
suffering.
itself,
Right now,
and absolute suffering and absolute love.
Okay, we don't need to refer to this kind of social experiment conducted by scientists. It's quite evident in the way like we see children being raised in a normal family, in different families, like in the real world, right? We know like if the parents, they are patient with the child, and the parent, they try to raise these kids in a conducive environment, then these children, they naturally adjust better to the demands of society. And then like if it comes from from a house without love or without like the conducive environment for him or for the child to grow, then of course this kind of child, when they reach adulthood, we know like they face problem in societies. This we can deduce without referring to like social experiments. Now your question about the absolute nature of suffering, that you think like due to like this kind of examples you feel like suffering is absolute. Now I want to like stress this to everyone when I say like when we talk about emptiness, I stressed this before we talked about emptiness. Maybe it will be tough for us to wrap our head around this concept of emptiness. And as I said before, and I'm repeating it again, when we approach the concept of emptiness in our monastic education, we approach it only at the end of like 15 or like 10 years study. This is not the concept that we jump onto like in the first place. It's very tough to like grasp this concept of emptiness at once. And there is also this concept of interdependence that we explain in Buddhism. That like everything that exists in this world depends on like a lot of different factors coming together, a lot of the right causes and conditions coming together. So if we're able to forget about emptiness for a bit and try to meditate, try to understand like, you know, maybe everything in this world exists or functions only by the fact of like interdependence. Like a lot of right causes and conditions coming together, a lot of different factors like playing their parts. So in this way we forget about emptiness for a bit, and we say like for suffering to arise there needs to be like the right causes and conditions. A lot of different factors like agent, people who actually like inflict the suffering, right? And then all these causes and conditions, all these factors coming together. In this way maybe we can say suffering is not absolute. Okay?
지난 가서 미기 상무 땅다지도. 나라도 디나로라 있었어. 먼저 상마라 지난 미니 카니 나니 감바 상마라 예치가 지자. 라 셈미요르 류요르 상마요. 이카실을 생라 강이 마티디. 라 나라 페 강이 둘은 소소 상마다가 마 로마시 데마기 파도나 시디로 드니글다. 카셰베 렐레신 지요. 띵은 잠잠 가서 나란처럼 왜 차지 집어지잖아. 이내야 수수 생기 강이 되어지서도. 라. 근데 이게 갈라나면 난 류기 나와서 와이나 나 땅에 나서더니 요와이네. 잠잠 생기야. 딜을 하 소셔도. 라. 스타이는 어디서 막 기우이는 집아. the way in a chipa in Gueruto. On the Sama Chipa Chipa, Bani, Company, me, Hakam, the Udo Yura. That Shando Kalu, the supporting Lily Chipa, Chajin Chipa Chichari, in a Kashisamba Chipu, Kashi Lamji, Kusuto, Tikal. So, Sano Tantajura, Tig Sugo, read in the Tanzania, the Kusuto, Mamma, Tadan, this somebody, this Chimando, and Mission Valley, this so lost to Charuda. Chetan, Sama Chipa in Ko, Gonzama mean, but Chibare, Koduchi win, and Kajin, you must symbol, Lulu, Pikishambra. This is some Chipa.
Okay, now like the Tama the shower. Okay, now like to end this session, maybe. Like we end this with another example now, and to reinforce this point. Since all of us, we are blessed with the same faculties, same abilities, sense-wise, organ-wise, as human beings. Now in this group, like we are all blessed with the same faculties, like we can hear. We are blessed with the same sense organs. We have the same organs, same like parts of the body, limb, but the way we react to reality, the way we react to suffering is not the same for everyone, right? Where does this depend? It depends on the mind of the person, mind of each person. So in this way, if we are able to approach suffering as not being absolute in this way, because if suffering is absolute, then it should be the same for everybody, right? Everybody should mentally feel the same thing, physically feel the same thing, but we do not respond. All of us, we do not respond in the same way. And in this way, maybe we understand. Maybe suffering is not so absolute as we think it is. Okay, then we end the session here.